So, playing video games as a chick isn't always a walk in the park. I'm not what you might call a gamer girl. Heck, for some reason folks have twisted that phrase into something not so cool. Instead, just believe me when I say, I'm just a girl who likes games. Period. Most times dudes assume I'm no good before they even see me play. It's like they think skill is tied to gender or something. Crazy, right? But it's not all bad. I mean, some guys are chill about it. However, when the bad stuff happens, it can really ruin a good time. And this one time, it really did. That's when I bumped into Midnight Kane on Sea of Thieves. Let me set the scene. Sea of Thieves is this rad game where you and your mates run a pirate ship. As a die-hard fan of all things pirates related, you bet I was all over that. Sailing and looting were my jam, until one night I joined a game with Midnight Kane. Kane seemed okay at first, a bit shocked to hear a girl's voice on the team, but hey, get in line, right? He stayed low-key, letting the more boisterous pirates take the spotlight with their squawking pets and shanty tunes. During a break after some intense skeleton pirate action, I munched on some virtual pineapples and joked about it making me crave the real thing: pizza. The crew dived into the great pizza debate when someone dropped the pineapple bomb. Me, I'm Team Hawaiian, love the sweet with the salt. But boy, did that cause a ruckus. Confessions like that can start wars, and one mate even pretended to jump ship over it. We yucked it up, but Kane, dead silent the whole time. Fast forward about 45, my stomach's doing somersaults and I'm ready to ditch them for a snack when the doorbell rings. My roomie's got it, so I don't think much of it, until she shows up at my door with a pizza box. At first I'm thinking she's a mind reader, cause, honestly, who doesn't want surprise pizza? But when I try to bum a slice, she's all kinds of confused because she thought I'd ordered it. Here's where it gets creepy. After some back and forth, seems like no one ordered it, but the box is for me, topped with, you guessed it, ham and pineapple. I tell her to keep it as my appetites left the chat. Back to my PC and I'm asking, hey, who sent me a pizza? A couple of pirates laugh it off, but Kane's ghostly quiet. When he finally says, me, with too much glee, I'm straight up freaked. I rip out my internet so fast I break the dang thing. That's when it hits me. He might know more than just my gamer tag. If he's got my home address from my IP address, who knows what else? His accent places him in North America, but that's no comfort if he's studying here in the UK. Too close for comfort. That week, no sleep. Nightmares had me up seeing imaginary creepers by my bed. I spilled the beans to my roomie and we ended up at the cops. There sits the officer, swamped with stories like mine. All he could say was block and dodge, because really, what else could he do? And that, my friends, is the scary truth. Online can be a wild west, and for gals in the game, staying safe's a real struggle because, let's face it, creeps are just around the next click. In a total daze, I told my Sea of Thieves crew to hang on and muted my mic. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. The pizza at my door wasn't meant for my friend, it was for me. Someone had sent it, paid in full, all the way down to the ham and pineapple on top. Feeling queasy, I brushed off the pizza and told my friend to go ahead and take it. I wasn't in the mood to eat. She seemed mixed up but grateful, even paused to check if I was okay. I put on a brave face and lied. Back to my computer I went, my mind racing with what just happened. Hey, did any of you just send me a pizza? I asked, even though I sensed the answer. The first couple of guys quickly said no, one even cracked up. But it wasn't funny, not when Midnight Kane went silent. His avatar froze on deck, ominously silent. Then he confirmed it, almost proud. Yep, that was me. Panic surged. I yanked at the Ethernet cable a touch too fiercely, breaking it. The internet was dead. But the damage was done. Kane had something, my gamer ID, my IP. What if he figured out where I lived? The fear was palpable. I could hardly sleep after that, tormented by terrifying dreams of some creep by my bed, grinning and ready to strike. I'd wake up bawling, drenched in sweat, and my roommate would rush to check on me. Eventually, I couldn't keep it in and spilled my guts. We ended up at the police station talking to a cop who had seen too many of these cases and could only suggest blocking Cain and maybe leaving Sea of Thieves be. Small comfort that he couldn't really help. Makes you think, right? The internet just might not be safe for someone like me. It's a place where some folks let the worst of themselves take the wheel, no matter the consequences. I've always been a bit of a headphone junkie, and I reckon I'll always be one. Coupled with that is my penchant for video games, especially those where hearing a pin drop can mean the difference between winning and losing. That's why I treated myself to the Bose A20 Aviation headset after scrimping and saving from a 10-month stint pumping gas. I'm talking just shy of $1,000 for these babies, but boy, were they a game changer. The moment I hooked them up to my iPhone, it was like I'd been teleported into the very heart of the music, hearing layers I never knew existed. But the ultimate test was gaming. Let me tell you, those first few hours were something else. That night, a friend and I were deep into Hunt Showdown, a game steeped with the eerie vibes of Louisiana swamps post-Civil War. The idea: hunt monsters, stay out of sight, and beat the other guys to the prize. And with my new headphones, I could hear everything. I mean, every creak of a door, every whisper of a footstep. It was spine-chillingly real. But it wasn't until the phone calls that I realized just how good these headphones were. After an epic gaming marathon, I found a bunch of missed calls on my phone. An unknown number had tried reaching me, and there I was, none the wiser. I was marveling at this when the sheriff's department number flashed up again. I answered, and they were as confused as I was, asking whether I'd been home since they'd been knocking for hours. The truth hit me like a freight train. The headset had been cranked up the whole time. While I was in my little bubble, a terrible scene was unfolding 1 floor above. A thug had forced his way into my neighbor's place, trying to rob her. When she couldn't give him what he wanted, he took her life instead. And there I sat, completely cut off from her cries for help. I'd be lying if I said it didn't haunt me. The guilt was heavy. I could have helped, maybe even saved her if I hadn't been so caught up. It wasn't long before I ditched the apartment, moved back with my folks and unloaded the headset, even though I'd practically bled myself dry to get it. But the thing is, it was that very obsession of mine, the selfishness, that sealed that poor girl's fate. That monster took her life, but my silence might as well have been the last nail in her coffin. A couple of years back, while I was grinding through college, I had this freaky thing happen to me while I was knee-deep in video games most nights. Homework or not, my room was my little hideout where I'd dive into another world with my console. The digs I lived in were nothing fancy, just a small, slightly beat-up house I shared with my roommate, Kevin, an all-around chill guy I met over in the dorms. We hit it off pretty well and figured renting a spot together made sense. That semester, we shared a class but mostly ran on different schedules, hustling our way through the school grind. So this one night, I was wound up tight from all the studying and class stuff, and I figured, why not battle it out in some Call of Duty to chill out? It was around 9, and the world outside had already turned in for the night. I'd been cooped up slaying a paper for like 3 hours, but hey, I knocked it out. Headset on, I lost myself in the game, racking up rounds until I caught this odd banging on my door. Now, this headset of mine, it's like it seals you off from the outside world. When I'm gaming, a tornado could rip through, and I wouldn't hear a peep. So, with this banging going down, I'm like, it's gotta be Kevin. Yanking off the headset, I holler for him to come in, but nada. No Kevin, no voice, zilch. I waited a bit, then hauled myself up and went to answer the knock. Opened the door, and there's nothing. No one. I checked Kevin's room thinking he was pulling a fast one, but all I got was silence. I shrugged it off. Maybe he hit the downstairs for something or other. After a recon of the house and no sign of Kevin, I headed back to my sanctuary to get my game on. 30 minutes in, I'm lined up in a match when, out the corner of my eye, something odd catches my attention. My setup's in one corner, my door on the opposite. And that door, it started creeping open. Super slow, like one of those horror flick moments. It gave me the heebie-jeebies, but good. We usually keep the joint dark to keep the power bill in check, so I'm squinting through the dark, catching a glimpse of someone. Then nothing. Doors now cracked a few inches when it was shut tight before. Full-on goosebumps hit me. I'm thinking, come on, it's gotta be Kevin messing around. Yet something didn't sit right. I shot Kev a text, figuring he'd own up, but the dude's at the gym. Right there, freaked out turned into flat-out scared stiff. Someone else is in my house. Panic's like a siren in my head. I'm thinking, who's inside? Are they dangerous? My room feels like a fortress all of a sudden. No weapon, no plan. I'm basically a sitting duck. I message Kevin the 411 and he's like, man, you gotta bail. But the second floor isn't exactly an easy escape route. So here I am, my heart doing double time and thinking about my next move. Kevin's telling me to book it, but jumping out of a second-story window wasn't my idea of smart. I start pacing, trying to figure out what my unwelcome guest's game plan was. Stay put? Confront them? I decided maybe, just maybe, I could sneak my way out. Cautious, quiet as a mouse, I tiptoe to the door, ears pricked for any sound. The house is dead silent, spooky-like. I take a deep breath, summon all the courage I got, and make a break for it. Down the stairs, not a peek over my shoulder, just straight for the front door and freedom. The second my feet hit the front yard, I feel a rush of relief. I lock myself in my car and finally breathe. Kevin's headlights flash behind me just a minute later. We do a room-by-room, lights-on search with Kevin leading the charge. But the house, now all bright and not so scary, is empty. No sign of any intruder. Turns out, our casual habit of not locking doors had backfired big time, but you bet that was the last time we ever made that mistake. After that night, the locks clicked every time, and the scare became just a spooky story to share. The mystery guest never did make a return visit, and frankly, we weren't looking to play host again. Nothing was touched, and I figure it's 'cause our broken college lives didn't exactly scream burglar's jackpot. And that's the night I played the real-life version of hide and seek without ever wanting to join the game. When I was a kid, my buddy's name was Kenneth, but everyone just called him Kenny. We've been buds since way back when, though these days we're not as tight as we used to be. We still hang out now and then, though. Back when we were around 12, our favorite thing to do was chill at each other's places and play video games. Kenny had all sorts of games, from racing to sports, you name it. He had an Xbox, and I had a PlayStation. One day, I headed over to Kenny's crib to hang. His older sister was out at her friend's place. His house was one story, with his room in the back, facing the yard. We kicked off playing games early in the evening while his folks went out, probably for dinner, but I can't quite recall. We weren't bothered being home alone. We weren't kids anymore. Kenny knew how to whip up a frozen pizza, so that was our plan for grub later. About 15 minutes after Kenny's parents split, there was a knock at the door. It was odd. Kenny's neighborhood was quiet, not much action usually. I lived nearby, so I knew something was up. Plus, it was getting dark, not the time for sales pitches. We paused the game, wondering who could be knocking. Kenny and I went to check it out, and there's this dude on the porch. He didn't look official, just some guy. I asked Kenny if he knew him, but he didn't. Then Kenny did something unexpected. He opened the door. The guy said he was expected by Kenny's folks and asked to wait inside. Kenny said no and started closing the door. The guy asked when Kenny's parents would be back, but Kenny didn't know and shut him out. After locking up, we watched the guy stroll away. We shrugged it off and went back to gaming. I was on the right side of the TV, Kenny on the left. There's this window behind the TV, and I caught a glimpse of the guy walking past. Strange, right? I mentioned it to Kenny, and we went to check, but we couldn't see much. It was dark, and the yard was full of trees and bushes. We couldn't shake the feeling. The guy was sketchy. Kenny called his folks, and they weren't expecting anyone. They said they were on their way home. We were spooked, so we locked up tight and turned on all the lights. Thankfully, we didn't hear from the guy again. Kenny's folks got back, and we told them what went down. They checked around but found nothing. My mom picked me up later, and I couldn't shake the feeling of what could have gone down. Kenny was lucky he didn't let the guy in. Who knows what he was up to, but it wasn't anything good.